All right, here we are at the last week of Ryan Tedder's monthly songwriting course, and I honestly can't believe that it's gone by so fast. I've learned a lot in the course, and hopefully if you've been keeping up with this series, you've sort of gleaned whether or not this course might be right for you. I'm going to go over what I've done this past week, and I'll probably just cap off with some finishing thoughts. So let's just dive right in, shall we? So the last time that we left off, we were at the very end of part 2. So the end-to-end music production, making a fully fledged track. And I was working on doing the finishing touches to my vocal, or my song in general. And so I revised the vocals, I gave them more oomph, and tried to basically just sing in full voice. So why don't I go to that? I'll just play the first verse and chorus just so you can get a sense of what that sounds like.
You gave me hope and praise, even when my thoughts were in vain. You showed me who I could be, shining like a light out at sea. What kind of fool do you take me for? You spun a web of lies to keep me yours. I'm out the door, yeah, I don't know where, but I don't care. You had me so damn hypnotized. You promised connection, but it's no surprise. The longer I spent with you by my side, the less that I ever felt truly alive. Yeah, I'm better without you. Yeah, I'm better without you.
Yeah, so I actually was pretty happy with how that turned out. And later on, I'll actually be releasing the full version. I'm just getting a lyric video produced. And then, yeah, I'm going to actually start uploading these songs that I put out, because it has been years since I've actually finished songs with lyrics and melodies. In fact, these are probably some of the only songs I've ever finished to completion. Usually it's just the instrumentals, and then someone else sings over them, or they just sort of die as instrumental tracks, never to really be heard by anyone. So if this course has really done anything for me so far, it has been a kick in the butt for me to actually get out of my comfort zone and actually finish tracks to completion with vocals and lyrics and everything. It's really been a step outside of my comfort zone, but you know, that's where all progress is made anyway, is outside your comfort zone. All right, so that's what I did with the second track. The only thing that was odd is that there's no peer feedback for this track. So once you kind of submit this song, it's just out there, and that's that. A couple people, you know, a few people have liked it. I got some comments, which is great, but there wasn't like really any official peer feedback to give any constructive critique or anything like that. And Ryan Tedder does not provide any feedback for the second track. Again, does that really make or break the course? No, not at all. Again, like I said before, if you are going into this course expecting to get feedback from him, think about it like in a grand scale. Is any sort of text feedback that you get from Ryan really going to make an impact on whether or not you get better at music production or get some hit track? No, it's all about repetition and just putting in the work. So while, you know, it's great if you do get feedback from him, just know that the amount of material that you get in this course is, I mean, it exceeds the value that they're asking for it. And, you know, you don't need the feedback from Ryan in order to get the most out of it. All right, so that's that. We finished the second part, and then we dove in. Why can I never figure out this word? We went into the third part of the course, which is all about collaboration. So basically, what you have to do for this part is you need to find someone to collaborate with. So they say in this section that it doesn't necessarily need to be another music artist. It can be someone that just happens to have musical taste, or just anyone that can sort of help you along your journey. The one thing that I wish I would have known this prior, like I kind of knew that collaboration was going to be a part of it, but I almost would have liked a little bit more advance notice so that I could have found time to collaborate with someone. Because it's hard when you have a full-time job and a lot of other people that you know that have full-time jobs. It is very difficult to coordinate schedules to get that going. And that's sort of the boat that I found myself in, is having a difficult time trying to find someone to collaborate with. But that's basically how part 3 works. And so it has sort of this expectations on what you'll do. So you'll watch Ryan collaborate with an artist. So he collaborates with Cautious Clay, and then you find a collaborator, you plan your session, and then you write your song through either collabing live or through Zoom. So the next pieces of this are Ryan going through and writing a song with Cautious Clay. So he starts off, well, first off, this section is different because all the videos for this are directly at the beginning. So you have like 4 hours of videos to watch, which is great. Like, I like longer in-depth videos, especially seeing things that are a little bit more raw and unedited like this. And so going through it, he kind of starts off the beginning before basically even meeting Cautious Clay. He's kind of talking with you as a viewer, kind of about his process when he collaborates with other artists. And so one of the things that he mentions is like, you know, you want to lean into your strengths, but you also want to respect the opinions of the artists that you're working with. So while, you know, you shouldn't be a doormat and you should say that, oh, all your ideas are great, let's just do those. You know, you should accept some of their ideas, but if you have an opinion that you want to make known, you need to have the confidence to be able to say, hey, you know, I think that melody is good, but I think it actually would be a little bit better if we did it in this direction. And so he talks about just some few tips to get started and just, you know, getting to know the artist you're working with. Don't just dive into a session, really just kind of get to know them, and kind of just helps relieve the tension, get you comfortable with each other, because it's a very vulnerable process to make songs together. And, you know, watching this video or watching these series of videos, I mean, there's a lot of vulnerability. I mean, you're singing a bunch of gibberish, and some of the melodies just don't sound good. Maybe you're off key for some of them. But then when you strike gold, it's gold. And so as we kind of go through in this video, it's basically Ryan and Cautious basically just trying to figure out, okay, well, what should we even write about? And so they discuss some lyrical concepts, and then once they kind of discover a concept that they could fully fledge into a song, they start going into different melody ideas and just a very broad stroke concept of what could be a backing track. So drums and I'm trying to remember what he uses as instruments, but it's pretty bare. Some piano, I believe. And so they go through like that. The one thing that I will say is that Ryan can be kind of domineering in this segment. So Cautious Clay occasionally has some ideas that he has, but Ryan sometimes doesn't always take to those ideas, and he instead goes with his own instinct. And it's not to say that he totally dejects Cautious Clay's opinions, because Ryan at least does give some explanation for why he thinks that maybe his melody choice is better suited for a song. But it can get a little domineering at times, because I could kind of get a sense that Cautious was maybe taken aback at some of the moves that Ryan made. But I mean, overall, it seemed to be a pretty mutual agreement between what they were getting out of the session. So it just keeps going through. So with part 2, I mean, again, you're just going through a full session. So in this segment, Ryan is not really a teacher, all right? It's basically the cameras are on him, but he's not talking to the camera. It is literally just a behind-the-scenes view of him working with Cautious Clay. And I like that. Like, I want to see what he does in his environment, because you have to think about this. At least from what I understand, this is a very unique perspective. When you look at YouTube videos, it's always people having pre-planned structures and then kind of going through and showing you how they do things, but they always have kind of like an idea in the back of their mind. This is completely from scratch, and it is 3 hours of literally just you being a fly on the wall, watching a Grammy-winning artist work with Cautious Clay, who has 2 million Spotify listens. I mean, he has a really large fan base. So you're watching two successful artists on how they collaborate. And so I appreciate that Ryan doesn't break every now and again to like talk about what he's doing in front of the camera. It would ruin the whole thing. So it's just it seems very organic to watch this unfold. So you just go through, and again, once they kind of get a rough vocal melody and lyrics, then they go through production and arrangement. The production isn't as heavy as it is in part 2, but it's reasonably enough so to make it sound full. And I think that's one of the things that I also have learned a lot from this course is that, and Ryan even says this, if you find the right sounds, then you don't need to layer a bunch of sounds. Maybe I didn't word that right. Anyway, if you have one good sound, you don't have to layer a bunch of bad sounds in order to compensate, if that makes sense. So I see a lot of artists and YouTube producers who will have 130 tracks, and they say that, oh, this is how you make a pro track. And to an extent, maybe that's the case, but Ryan really debunks that and says, well, maybe you just need 30 of the right tracks as opposed to 75 okay tracks, and you have to stack them to make them sound good. I mean, if you can kind of tell from this little sidebar here, he only has like 32 tracks, or if that. And that's pretty much the song. He has everything that he needs, and it's because of the right sound selection and the right effects that he uses on those instruments to make them sound full, to give them space when needed, or to make them punchier when needed. All right, and then the last piece of this is, again, vocals. So Cautious Clay records all of his vocal takes. Ryan goes through and has him do some ad-libs. The interesting part about this is that, and I don't really get this, but Ryan pretty much laid the entire vocal take on his own, even though he was technically writing this for Cautious Clay, which I thought was a little bit odd. Like, I could understand if he had a vocal melody in mind and wanted to sort of just sing it so Cautious has an idea of it, but he pretty much did the entire vocal track, and then he was like, all right, Cautious, now I want you to kind of do that. Now, Cautious did have some input, so I mean, the verse 2 lyrics were almost entirely his, and his melody was almost entirely his, but for the first verse and chorus, a lot of the melodies that were used and a lot of the lyrics Ryan came up with, and not oftentimes, but occasionally would not reject, but didn't go with the ideas that Cautious came up with. And in fairness, I did actually prefer the takes that Ryan did anyway, but still, I can't help but feel like it was a little bit dismissive at times. And I know that there was a comment on one of my other videos where someone kind of had the same feeling. But again, I didn't detract from it because it's still really helpful to kind of just see this whole process. So once you get through all that, then you have to prepare for collaboration. And this is kind of where things went off the rails for me, only because I didn't have anyone to collaborate with. So I did have someone in mind. It was someone that actually reached out to me through one of these videos who happens to be a part of a band. He's a singer. And so we certainly contacted each other, but just wasn't able to get things done in time. But ideally, I'll be collaborating with this person in the future, and we'll release something with him. The cool thing is that I did have someone from my peer group reach out to me, and he was already collaborating with someone, but he was willing to kind of just meet through Zoom, hear a rough draft that I was doing, and was willing to kind of come up with some vocal melody ideas. So, your peer group can really be hit or miss. I had a comment saying that, the guy that was in this course had a really bad peer group and was very defamatory or inflammatory towards his music and was being quite critical. My peer group has been really good and has been quite a variety of talent, and I'm going to say pretty much all the feedback that I've gotten has been positive and constructive to at least help me on how I can make things a little bit better. So ideally, I would have someone to collaborate with, and then you would schedule like a Zoom session to work on your song and then submit the song by Tuesday. So Tuesday is the last day that you can submit a song, because by then the course is done. So I didn't have that ability, and I will say that this section does feel a little bit rushed, because if you didn't already have someone to collaborate with going into this, it's a pretty short window of time to get that to work. So if you do decide to do this course, which I absolutely think you should, because there's just so much info in it that's worth absorbing, you should at least have an idea going into it on who you might want to collaborate with, because there's only 3 or 4 days after you watch the videos where you have to come up with not only a rough draft, but the finished product in 3 to 4 days. So that is very pressing, to not only come up with a track, but to try to collaborate with someone else on it in such a short span of time. Now I get it. It's monthly. It's supposed to last a month. So, it's a challenge. But I didn't have someone to collaborate with, so I had to come at it at a different viewpoint. So I was like, okay, well, if I don't have the ability to collaborate with someone, I need to challenge myself. And so I told myself, okay, well, I'm going to make a new style of a track that I would pitch to maybe someone else. So a genre of music that I've been listening to a lot to lately, sort of like this funk pop kind of Dua Lipa, Doja Cat kind of style. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can make a track that I would be happy to pitch to them. So that's kind of what I did and what I've been working on so far. I get it's not really a collaboration, but I wanted to have something versus just saying, okay, well, I don't have anyone to collaborate with, so I'm just not going to submit anything. So with that being said, I will play you what I have so far. I'm pretty happy with it. There's no vocal melody. There's no vocals at all yet. I just haven't had time to work on that, but here's what I have so far. Oh, and of course my internet decides to buffer. Anyway, that should at least give you an idea of what it sounds like. So it's a departure from the past 2 songs that I've written. I've never really written anything in this style of genre, but it's really fun to just try to take notes from different artists and how they make tracks like this, because I basically would listen to other songs in this genre, and I would kind of pick pieces from one song or one element that I liked and just kind of go from there. And that's what I did with this. And so I'll try adding some vocals and a melody and lyrics to this as I go through. And ideally, I'll have this done by Tuesday. Again, I haven't really collaborated with anyone, but a song is better than no song. So I'd rather just try to submit something as opposed to nothing. Okay. And then the last piece of this, Ryan just has some parting words on how to keep learning and how to actually get into the music industry. And one of the things that he talks about is collaboration. Like, collaboration is huge when it comes to doing this, especially like for me. I don't have a following. I don't even have a Spotify artist account at this point. So collaboration is one of the best ways that Ryan says that you can start to become known in the music industry, because you're basically leveraging the audience that they already have. So this is certainly a strategy that's been used in business. If you've ever heard of the Dream 100 strategy, I recommend looking into that, because it's based off of the same principle. If you don't have an audience currently, then find someone that's just a little above you, and then figure out if you can kind of find a way to provide value for them, collaborate with them, and then that way, if you release something, you've now leveraged their audience because whatever you upload is going to have their name attached to it. And so their audience is going to be curious on what that is. And that way you can kind of gain a little bit more exposure and just gain connections. And it totally makes sense for me. So, I mean, nothing in here is like super mind blowing that's going to absolutely catapult you into the music industry from this 4-minute video. But, they're good parting words, and it just was a nice little bow to wrap up the course. So yeah, I mean, overall, this course has been absolutely phenomenal. It's been worth the money that I spent, and I'll probably end up doing just like a final review to cap off everything. But if you're thinking about getting this, absolutely jump on it. And then don't forget that in the description below, when this course starts rolling out again, you can save $20 if you use that link below. So be sure to do that so you can save a little bit of money while you learn to become a better songwriter. All right, so stay tuned for the final review if you are interested. And as always, take care, and I will see you in the next video.